Hi, my name is Karen Swafford, and I have with me today Elder Richard Clark, and he is Jamaican, born in London, and today we're going to learn a little bit about the Jamaican culture versus the American culture. So, hi, Richard.
Hi, how are you?
Great. First question I have for you is where are you from?
I'm from Bristol, England. Bristol, England is about 120 miles west of London. By the way of Jamaica, my parents are Jamaican. They grew up in the same town, Islington, Jamaica, St. Mary's. My father's from Highgate, which is just a neighboring town from Islington, in the same parish of St. Mary's, an island of Jamaica. And they migrated to England in the I would say about early to mid 50s, and then that's where they began their family. My mother was just about 19 years old at the time, and my father in his mid 20s. So that's how we originated.
So you were born in Bristol.
Was born in Bristol, England.
Okay, and then you migrated to the U.S. when?
I migrated to the U.S. in 1986, July of 1986. Yes.
Okay, so what was the reason for you wanting to come to America?
Being raised up in the church, and I have somewhat backslidden. And I got an invitation from the general overseer of the church organization to come on over and get a different phase of life, a different outlook. And so I came up in 86, lived with her sister for a short while, and then moved on and branched out from there. So, yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you came to the U.S. basically for, because of a religious region to taste the new flavor of that organization. And that organization would be the Church of God in Christ?
No, it's not Church of God in Christ. It's Pentecostal City Mission. Because in England, we can walk on the street at any hours of the night. And as long as you were in St. Paul's, where I grew up, 20 years of my life, you could walk down the street and see another black person. They wouldn't mess with you, because you were in St. Paul's.
Right.
You were not in South Mead. You were not in Lotley's, where there was more Caucasian areas. In St. Paul's, you were safe. So
it's a little difference there.
Yeah. So that wasn't going to happen. So
I think I just have one more question. We're going to kind of wrap it up here. One thing I wanted to ask you is when it comes to family, the family unit, in the Jamaican culture, growing up in London, who would you say would be the authoritative or disciplinarian in your household versus how you see it here? Do you see a difference between?
In the Jamaican family, the father figure is the most prominent figure in the household. The father, his meals would always be prepared for him. He'd be the disciplinarian. He would have the most food on his plate. Okay, and his, he was not expected to wash his own clothes or anything like that. Everything was taken care of for him.
So now when you look at America,
America is a different culture. There's more of a share between in the cultures in the United States. So that's the difference. And it was a culture shock here for me too to see all that, because if men sat at the table, men would always be served first. That was the culture. Men are always served first. So here it's not.
So it's something you had to get used to. Just a little difference in that one. In your own family unit, I'm sure.
Yeah. You adapted to that, and you did everything to make it work.
And there was something interesting that I've heard you say, and we're going to wrap it up on this. In America, we work to live. But in Jamaica, you live to work. No, it's the other way around. In America, we live to work.
Right.
And in Jamaica, you work to live.
Or in England, you work to live, right? So, for instance, there's not so much emphasis on what you do, but as long as you're doing it. In here, it's pretty much what you do.
Right.
If you're not a doctor, then you're not looked at on the same status. But in England, as long as you're working and you're taking care of your family, then hey, you're doing something and you're successful. But here, you got to reach that.
It's a status.
You got to reach that status quo.
Right.
You got to have a lucrative job, and you got to be putting in a right amount of money. and that's what they look at you here. So it's more pressure on an individual to become something versus somebody. The most that we expect you to do in England is to at least get a job and to be able to take care of your family. And then usually everybody's comfortable with that, you know. But here it's not just having a job; it's just not doing it.
Right.
You know, you gotta have bring in the bucks.
Bring in the books.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and sharing
You
your
are
culture
so
with
welcome.
my class.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.